Hello Guardians, it is Ebontis, and today we've got some huge changes announced that are going to be coming in the December 7th 30th anniversary patch. A whole bunch of exotics, perks, I will get to those in a minute. But before we do that, we do have the Trials Labs kind of Crucible mix-up coming in this weekend, and it does have bonus Trials Reputation. So I've got a video coming that actually Trials is a really great way to grind out Reputation for both Trials and Crucible because you get both at the same time. So spend some time in Trials this weekend. Couple things that are going to be happening. It is going back to the capture zone. They are going to try that again. They said the waypoint of the capture zone will be up for 30 seconds. And then after that, it will go active. And then the capture zone starts in the middle of the map in the first round and will change location at the end of each round. That being said, they did make some changes from the previous feedback. They are using stronger Trials maps. They're using Endless Veil, a map that people like more as opposed to previously where it was. Rather than rotating through points that give one team a significant advantage because it literally went from one side of the map to the other, they're using 3 neutral zones. So if you got A side and, C side, all the points are going to be right there in the middle on B. Different parts of the map, probably different lanes, but it's going to be neutral on all 3 locations. I think that's actually, that's probably how it should have been from the beginning. More neutral locations, different areas to fight, different tunnels, different lanes, things of that nature. Also, one other change. Players no longer get super energy when capping a zone. That was just something people were taking advantage of, like getting extra super energy, kind of getting a little out of hand. So, again, spend some time in Trials. We are back to the Flawless Pool. So it will be card-based matchmaking all weekend. Flawless Pool will be turned on Sunday at 10 a.m. And then, as with the previous labs, as they said, 2 times Trials rank booster will be on all weekend. So unless you're going for a Flawless card, pick up the Passage of Wealth, and you'll be getting double boost from this, and you also get extra Reputation from the Passage of Wealth. So get some Reputation, get some Engrams, you can get good armor, good weapons in there. Spend some time, experiment, see how it is before the Flawless Pool, see how it is after Trials Labs. This is where they get some of their new information, but it should be an interesting map to see, for one, the map how it goes, and also how the capture zone goes. That's the Trials information mostly knocked out. The big thing to talk about is pew pew, as they say. The 30th anniversary comes out on December 7th. That's going to be the new dungeon, the Thorn armor, that's going to have Galahorn, the quest, the Catalyst, all that stuff's in there. Bunch of ornaments and things that kind of are throwbacks to all the history of Destiny. There's like a Needler armor, and there's like a Marathon shotgun, all that type of stuff. But also with the 30th anniversary, typically this would be when expansion's coming out, but Witch Queen got pushed basically a few months. So we've got a big sandbox patch coming, and there's a lot to cover in here. I'm going to try and go as high level as I can, but any of the comments in here, please drop your thoughts below into the comments and let me know if you have yays, nays, if there's something they did well, over, too much. Let me know what you guys think about all this stuff. It's very interesting, and I think it's all mostly in a pretty positive direction. So for archetypes, we've got shotguns. They said they reduced the slug shotgun PvE damage bonus from 30% to 20%, but they gave the pellet shotguns a 10% PvE bonus. Basically, they said, I think they thought the slugs were a little too strong, but the pellets need a little love, but not as much because they're a little more easy use. Linear fusions are going to get an increased PvE damage by 10%. So if you've ever wanted to use linear fusions in this game ever, you'll have 3 months from the December 7th anniversary edition, well, December, January, and basically February, close to 3 months, when this 10% buff on linears is increased, on top of still having particle deconstruction as the seasonal mod. So the final 3 months of this season, linear fusions are going to be really strong, and then hopefully they're in a decent spot afterwards. But yeah, linear fusions are going to be a must, and probably going to be a very strong thing for that new dungeon as well. Caster swords, you guys know I posted a community post about that one. They reduced the heavy attack ammo cost from 8 to 5. So when you actually throw the bolt that will do the damage from range, they actually made it cheaper, just to give this one a little better use. Also, the ammo cost, they don't have quite as much ammo, so this really helps, because if you threw one heavy attack, your ammo was going down really fast. So overall, this makes casters a little better. I wish they got a small bump in ammo, but I'll still take the heavy attack being cheaper. It is nice to have that much damage from range that kind of like slowly drifts, tracks, and then hits and does some damage. It's still a very cool effect, but it is kind of one of those, like, it doesn't get used that often. Bows. This one I'm always for, because I just enjoy bows. They said they bumped up bows 10% versus rank and file, but they're doing it even more. So they're increasing damage versus rank and file. That's your red bar enemies by another 10% approximately. So they're going to give them a bit of a nudge. Now this one, like, boggles my mind, so I'm going to read it and you guys let me know what you think. Sidearms and fusion rifles Due to an ancient data entry error, again, remember all the crazy code that we have in this game from years and years, sidearm and fusion rifle projectiles were non-hit scan. Basically, hit scan is if I'm aiming at something and I push my trigger button, where that reticle is facing, depending on how they do aim accuracy and all that stuff, that hits basically right at that point. Because if it was non-hit scan, it actually has to cover the travel distance in whatever short time it has. Behind the scenes, the engine does math converting a projectile from non-hit scan to hit scan if it would cover a specific distance in one frame. So 60 frames per second, it's like 0.16. There's a math there, I forget, somebody said it plenty of times. Basically, it said it would only occur running at 60 frames per second or higher. Shout out to a specific community that figured this out. Basically, they increased the sidearm and fusion projectile speed. I don't know why sidearms had this. That's so weird because you would picture all bullets typically travel that way, so sidearms were an oddball. Their projectile speed is going to be up to 9999. Basically, it makes them hit scan no matter the frame rate that you're running, even if you're running like 140 frames or some crazy amount. So sidearms and fusions will now basically be acting like hit scan weapons, and I'm wondering what that's going to do to fusion rifles because they still have that little like travel time weirdness to like the way all the little pellets come out of a fusion rifle. So I will be curious to see how fusions feel after this one, because if this is an old one and now it feels better for I'll be curious if this matters. If you're running 60 frames per second, it may not matter. Maybe consoles get it better, maybe high rank PCs, who knows. Either way, may not feel a difference at all, but it's something that apparently needs fixed, so we're all on a level playing field. There are a lot of exotic changes. I'm going to try and go through them as quickly as possible, but there's a ton. Vex Mythic class, they're trying not to completely nerf it in PvE, which I appreciate, but make it not quite as much in PvP. So they reduced the aim assist stat by 25, reduced the linear fusion rifle mode aim assist cone from 1.1 to 1.05. Those things are very detailed. Shout out to Mercules for understanding that stuff. Now requires 3 eliminations for full overcharge instead of 2, so you don't get the linear fusion stuff quite as often. You gotta get 3 kills before you get that up. Fighting Lion. Basically, it's not like a full rollback when they hit grenade launchers. Fighting Lion, even though it's a primary, got hit a little extra hard. So basically, they're making it to where the multi-hit requirement is gone. Dealing any buff will give you the damage the Fighting Lion. Doing any damage will give the buff Fighting Lion normally has. It increased the buff to the reload stat from 50 to 70. It's still slow to reload, but if you do get that damage with the grenade itself, then you're actually going to be getting a faster reload, and the buff lasts longer for about 7 seconds. Overall, Fighting Lion should be a much more reasonable to use again. If you enjoy that weapon, should feel a little bit better. Arbalist is getting intrinsic and anti-barrier. That one's also going to be very fun to use for the last 3 months of the season, because now it can be a barrier weapon, and those are really fun to use. And Arbalist feels really good, typically. Now that it's anti-barrier, you can use it on those champions. I've been waiting for this one. Sleeper Simulant, shout out to my co-host Lord Cognito, increased magazine size from 3 to 4, increased the PvE damage by 6% on top of, and they said really this time, on top of the 10% that linear fusion's already got. So Sleeper's getting a 16% buff, all linears are getting 10, and the magazine's going up from 3 to 4. So overall, they said, as an exotic, it didn't feel as special versus some of the legendaries. Hopefully this and the ginormous charge time will give it a little bit more of a boost. Suros Regime, they said the dual mode receiver now grants the following in addition to its effects: plus 30 range and plus 3 zoom. Basically, they wanted to make it when it's firing slow to actually work the way it's supposed to be. Have longer range, have better zoom, and basically turn it into a high impact auto rifle. So that's what they're hoping to accomplish with that one. Cryosthesia, a weapon that most of us haven't used, and I still haven't even finished the catalyst on because I need to take it into PvP. They said they removed the variable trigger completely. Variable trigger. Now it fires on trigger press instead of release, which is the way it's good. This will make it more responsive because it was like this weird release thing. The charge shot moved to special reload. Getting a final blow with the sidearm enables access to the special reload. Once the charge shot is fired, the weapon reverts back to its normal sidearm mode. This does not cost your entire magazine. Charge shot now causes an AoE, which freezes AI and slows players. Direct hits will still freeze. Overall, like, it just felt like a weird weapon. I think these are all positive changes from what I can see. This is, like, literally nothing negative. Seems to make the managing of what the exotic's supposed to do, get some kills, reload it with the free shot, shoot the free shot, get back into what you're normally doing. Makes it a lot more normal use. I think it was a weird little... It just felt off on top of being, you know, sidearms probably aren't that popular. See if it makes a difference, but at least it seems to have a bit more normal functionality, probably what we're used to. Leviathan's Breath. This is your big bow. This bow is underused, so we wanted to give it a bump, while also making its catalyst more interesting. And they said expect this type of catalyst tweak to become more common, so they're using the catalyst tweaks to maybe give things a bit of a different nudge. The catalyst now grants archer's tempo, so if you hit a precision shot with this bow, it's going to have faster reload time, in addition to its other effects. So catalyst is already there, and now it's going to grant archer's tempo on top. Whisper of the Worm. Many of you guys have probably seen that video. Some of you guys probably found my channel because of that guide. The original DPS King has fallen out of favor, and with the delay before the damage buff kicking in, making the weapon much less usable. So basically what they've done, they've reduced the delay on activating Whispering Breath from 2.1 seconds to 1.2, so almost half. White Nail magazine refill is also changed. This is exciting. It was 3 from the inventory, but it now pulls 2 from inventory and 1 from thin air. So if you hit those critical shots, you're actually going to have a much longer extended, basically, ammo reserves, because they're not all coming from inventory. Basically, 1/3 of them are going to come out of thin air. And increased PvE damage by 10%. I don't know if this is going to take a sniper rifle up to, like, epic DPS, but this is definitely going to take Whisper of the Worm if you can have extended damage time on a target and continue to hit like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This is going to be a very valuable use if you can hit your critical shots with Whisper of the Worm, boost the PvE damage, letting the White Nail magazine pull like a third of your bullets from thin air, and getting that perk up much quicker. All of these things make this weapon better. They're probably not trying to go too far because they still don't want people sitting in the back of the map just chilling. But again, this is exciting. Darcy is another one I don't think anybody's used except for measuring meters for shotgun range. Shout out to Fallout on that one. Overall, they're basically saying this one is hard to use and needed a buff. So they reduced the flinch, the recoil, and accuracy degradation by 50% while Personal Assistant is active. Personal Assistant is now has a 1-second delay before deactivating. So if you keep it on the target, maybe you get bumped off, but you get it back, it'll keep the bonus. And the damage in PvE is increased by 20%. This thing has some beefy reserves. I don't know how it's going to feel, but 20% damage bonus. On top of you get the damage bonus by holding Personal Assistant on them. And I swear this thing holds like 28 in reserves if you throw sniper reserves on. Snipers could be an interesting test. I will be very curious to see how all of these go. Malfeasance, basically the explosion damage is increased by 50%. So if you get the Malfeasance explosion, it will definitely do substantially more. Dead Man's Tale, they said they've seen the scout rifle usage drop dramatically. I still see it a decent amount in PvP, but they're trying not to do too much to PC PvP. So what they're going to do is actually help a little bit on controller, because I don't know if this was ever as strong in controller. I know like Arbalist is crazy on controller, they tune that down. Dead Man's Tale in PC world, like mouse and keyboard was insane. It still kind of hurts a lot, but they said they're going to increase the reticle friction fall off distance. No effect for mouse and keyboard. You're going to have less recoil, no effect on mouse and keyboard. Improved accuracy, no effect on mouse and keyboard. So controller users should have a little better chance at going for Dead Man's Tale. So if you haven't got it yet, definitely still worth getting. It's a scout rifle, still hits pretty hard, can definitely have some fun. Heir Apparent Catalyst. It reduces the damage resistance against players from 75% to 25%. If you haven't played much Trials, people would take Heir Apparent, pick up the heavy ammo on whatever round that is for PvP, and just walk around this slowly marching thing that would not die, and you have a heavy weapon that's pumping out a lot of bullets. So yeah, it was a bit much. 25% will still make you a little harder to kill, but 75% you're a walking tank, and that was a bit much. Lawrence Driver removed ability energy regeneration on picking up telemetry. So they said the bonus ability energy feels extraneous when the damage buff is so strong, and we're limiting certain weapon sources of ability energy. They're trying to manage too many ability recharge rates, basically, so, you know, PvP isn't just pure abilities. Traveler's Chosen as well. The ability energy granted from the perk was on a curve that isn't intuitively understood. Similar to Lawrence Driver, it seemed appropriate to adjust this in PvP. These changes aren't noticeable in PvE. Now it grants 10% ability energy per stack on activation, was previously more generous on low stacks, less generous on high stacks. So like, even if you had 4 and you refilled your abilities, you'd get a decent chunk. If you got all the way up to 10 somehow, you weren't seeing the benefit of getting that high. Now it's kind of a more linear average, so 4 versus 10, you should see a bump in the amount of energy that you get back. They also said they reduced the stacks granted on a Guardian defeat from 3 to 2, making stacking this thing a little bit harder in PvP. Perk changes. We're not done. Adrenaline Junkie. They did mention this was going to be getting a bit of a change. They said eliminations with the weapon can add single damage stacks or extend existing ones. Grenade eliminations boost the stacks immediately to 5x and lower the duration to compensate for weapon activation. You'll see this more often. The bonus damage and the grenade eliminations are going to give you a quicker boost as well. They just said the perk wasn't performing as intended, and the path of least resistance was making it live up to its name, basically Grenade Buckler. Vorpal. This is also getting a change. If you guys saw that sword that I put a community post about and tweeted about, a perk that grants 15% bonus damage against all targets I'm going to use my heavy weapon on. What do you use your heavy weapons on? Bosses. You always do. So they said it was 15% damage on all weapons. Now they've kind of changed it to give a reason to use it in different places. 10% bonus on heavy weapons against bosses, vehicles, and things like that. So it's 5% less. 15% on special for Vorpal, and then 20% bonus on primary. So if you're going to pull out your primary against a boss, you are going to be getting that 20% bonus. So, you know, your pulse rifle against a boss, if it does have Vorpal, doesn't totally suck now. And also, Vorpal counts for champions, remember that. So all of this goes into play against champions. So specials will be about the same. Primaries are going to hit harder. Heavies are going to be weaker against those champions. Whirlwind Blade. This was too obvious the best sword perk. Basically what Whirlwind Blade was, as you get consecutive attacks, you would get this Whirlwind Blade stack. And then when you hit that Whirlwind Blade, it would do a much beefier attack, especially most people would go light, 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 heavy, and get a big chunk. So they said they increased the number of stacks to hit maximum damage from 5 to 10. So it's going to take longer to get that stack up. So previously everybody wanted like Relentless Strikes and Whirlwind Blade. That was your optimal sword combo. And if you're going against a boss, like say in Prophecy in the first one, now potentially if you have Relentless Strikes in Vorpal or Relentless Strikes in Whirlwind Blade, I don't know where these two are going to net out. It could end up that Whirlwind Blade's probably still better because, you know, you're wailing on the guy the whole time anyway. It's just, honestly, I'm not entirely sure. 10% damage all the time, or Whirlwind Blade with that huge chunk, but you have to get 10 strikes to get to that stack. I will be curious to see, but both, and that's just swords, again, for Whirlwind Blade. Vorpal is across all weapons, keep that in mind. Pulse Monitor. Now, this one actually sounds exciting. Pulse Monitor doesn't always sound too appealing to me, but yeah. What if instead of activating in what feels like a fail state, when you're basically in your last third of health, this activated on a state you'd be in almost every encounter, even if you're winning. Change the threshold for activation from 90% health to 30% shield. This now requires much less damage to trigger. So the activation was going to come from like 90% health, but now it's like when 30% of your shield is gone. So that first third of your shield, now this is actually active as opposed to like basically 2/3 of your health bar, which is almost all of your shield, and then just a little bit of your health. It's going to activate much, much sooner. So if you like what Pulse Monitor does, that little bonus, especially for like reload speed and stuff, this one definitely could be a thing. Because if you're taking partial damage, which we mostly are half the time, this will activate much, much quicker. Mods are also getting a quick change. Quick Access Sling. This usage on mod is very telling. It's used extensively on bows and breach load grenade launchers and barely used on all other weapons. So basically, the handling was plus 100, so your switch was insanely fast. Now it says 0.9 times the reload speed. Basically, they're switching it over to be more about the ready and stow versus the handling to kind of affect everything. Said this change also applies to the Swap Mag perk as they use the same perk behind the scenes. Full Auto. They are actually retrofitting this one to give more accessibility options for, you know, different controllers and people who need to have full auto just for functionality of playing the game. So they said they added a full auto retrofit weapon mod that enables full auto while the trigger is held, usable on legendary sidearms or legendary hand cannon, sidearms, scouts, and pulses. This is auto unlocked by default for all players, so this is just an excelled stability feature. Overall, good thing across the board. Kind of hard to argue with that one. They also mentioned some interesting things I want to touch on here in the end. The annual expansions are a good time for system level changes. Believe me, there's some of these I'm waiting for, but I don't know if I'll ever see them. They said they don't like that the desire for exotic catalyst is largely driven by orbs of power generation that they provide. And they have something in the works for that. Like some exotics have catalysts, some don't, but either way, you always want the catalyst so you can make orbs with an exotic weapon, because some exotics that don't have a catalyst, you can't make orbs, and we live off of those orbs in higher level content. Weapon differentiation. I am very curious to see if this is weapon crafting or what they do, but I want to read this paragraph and let you guys kind of digest it. if I have 2 Void adaptive hand cannons, take like a 140 if I'm remembering the type right, but they're both Void hand cannons. One from the Suros Foundry and one from the latest raid, for example. Why do I care about one more than the other? The stats tend to be fairly close, if not almost identical. Perks pools can be different, but they are only so many perks, and it's a stretch to say that the perk pool gives the weapon its identity. We've got something shipping on all new and reissued weapons in the Witch Queen that addresses this issue directly, and are working to expand the same solution to all weapons that drop in the future. So something about your weapons, if they're in the same family, are still going to have some distinction that makes them different depending on their source. If it's like from the world loot pool or you get it from the raid, I don't know what that's going to be because this is just vague. But I mean, I agree with this. If I have a Void hand cannon and I've got a decent roll on it, and it's like a 140, and then I get another 140 over here, maybe this one can get a little more range, maybe this one has a little more stability, but if I'm comfortable and find a weapon, going into a raid and getting another one that's that close to it is not going to do anything to really set it apart. So for me, if it's, I honestly have no idea what this is going to be, but I'm guessing weapon crafting will have something to do with all of these weapon changes we're wondering about. It's still very interesting, but it's like, I agree with the statement that, yeah, it's like, you need one of each type. You don't need 12 different 140 hand cannons, especially if they're Void already. You only need really one good one that you like, and you're kind of good. Hopefully that's cool. I have no idea what the changes going to be. We mentioned in the last patch notes that we're not done with special ammo economy and PvP, and have a further tweak coming that should help bring down the amount of ammo floating around. Again, primary gunfights are what they're going for. Less ability use, less specials all the time where people run around with like 10 shotgun rounds. Trying to get it back into more primary fights is, I think, their goal, but a balance of like not making it too slow and boring where it's all primary. I know they're walking a delicate line. They're seeing what's going to happen. Exotic primary weapons already advance ammo finder mods much faster, which I don't entirely know because most primary weapons don't even need ammo finders at this point. But we want them to feel better in hard PvE content, and they're adjusting all of them to reach this goal. So, I mean, the fact that you have primary weapons have infinite ammo, it's not a bad thing. So, like, you know, your Sunshots, your Cosmology, or your Graviton Lance, those type of weapons, they have infinite ammo. But again, they still need to be better in PvE content. I'll be curious what that is. They said they were adjusting some exotics, some that consistently top the PvP usage charts in an oppressive way. Some have had their perks limited to a degree that's no longer warranted. We're looking at you, Chaperone. So there are some exotics they have their eyes on making some changes for. More specifics will come in the future. This is a lot of changes to digest. So if anything in this list speaks to you, try it now, get a feel for it, see how everything's running, and then come December 7th when the 30th anniversary whole patch comes out and that little boost of content, things are going to change. Exotics are going to be feeling different. Some weapons a lot of things seem like they're going to be getting better mostly overall. So this is a huge boost to what's coming on the 30th anniversary. It's going to be December 7th again. So if you haven't picked that one up yet, these types of changes are still going to be free for you. What weapons and stuff, it's just the content itself that will be, you know, part of the expansion. But sandbox changes, they're coming to everybody. So if there's certain weapons you like seeing on this list, you might be in for some fun changes. If you guys did enjoy this video, please drop a like below. If you want to find me on Twitter, it is @Ebontis for streaming, twitch.tv/Ebontis, or I stream right here sometimes on YouTube. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit the alert bell, and if you want to support me, you can join the channel as a member, have emotes for comments, and when I do live streams, you can also find me on Patreon to do that direct support as well. Thank you all. I'll see you soon.